Companies like Google, Tesla, and Walmart, which have impacted many immigrant workers.
199,000, a bit better than expectations.
Employment rate, though, jumps to 3.9%. That's going to be an interesting breakdown.
Are Americans on the verge of unemployment? The US, the largest economy in the world, is heating up. The richest country is running for jobs. The crisis is going to have a great impact on the US's economic health. The colonial power, which has its roots in industrialization and capitalism, finds it difficult to provide jobs for its citizens. Get ready, because today we're going to dive into the labyrinth of unemployment that sucks the blood out of the US. The US has always been a global power in this multipolar world. Using their health and acceptance, the US tends to control geopolitics. But today, the US government and stakeholders are focusing on the internal crisis, which is said to be unemployment. The labor report of 2024 in the US shows that there was an addition of 275,000 jobs to the US job market. But how true is this statement? Well, the news and reports coming from the US suggest the opposite. The people of the US are bleeding for jobs. The natives of the US are searching for jobs every day as they struggle to manage their livelihood. The native unemployment rate in the US used to be really low before the pandemic. The Native American jobless rate averaged 6.2% in 2022, close to the 6.1 average in 2019. This was the lowest rate since the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, began measuring unemployment within the community 22 years ago. But what is it like now? After the COVID-19 pandemic, lockdowns and economic distress affected every nation. The US was no exception. In fact, the US was one of those countries that was affected the most. As part of the lockdown, all the companies suspended their operations, which resulted in a record number of temporary layoffs. Total civilian unemployment, as per the current population survey, fell by 21 million from the fourth quarter of 2019 to the second quarter of 2020. When it comes to the unemployment rate, it has more than tripled from 3.6% to 13%. But the unemployment rate fell to 8.8% in the third quarter and to 6.7% in the fourth quarter. It was still 3.1% higher than 2019, and the citizens were expecting it to lower as the economy was recovering slowly from the crash, but it rose day by day. The number of native-born workers declined by 560,000 in February, which is said to be a record number. Americans are either begging for a job or being kicked out of the job. Giant companies in the US like Amazon, UBS, Google, and Nokia are carrying out massive layoffs, leaving millions in the streets. Other companies that announced layoffs in 2023 to 2024 include Yellow, Accenture, United Parcel Services or UPS, etc. Does the Biden administration look affected? The statements coming out of the White House and the reports released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics are trying to gaslight the situation. The announcement from the US government was, the economy added 275,000 jobs last month. This statement doesn't really go along with the rate of decline in the Native American workers. The decline in the number of workers doesn't add up to the overall claimed job growth of 275,000 jobs. But what worsens the situation is the US government's immigration policies. The Biden administration is worsening the situation by creating a crisis at the southern border by opening the floodgates to illegal immigration from Mexico. As the immigrants are added to the labor market, the supply-demand ratio is getting disturbed, and the Native Americans pay the price. Apart from the low demand, the jobs are also getting cheap, which ultimately leads to underpayment. It will have a great impact on the standard of living of the people in the US. When the government is rushing to fulfill the political agenda through immigration policies, their citizens are wandering in the street for a decent paying job. Why is there a disconnect between the government's claim and reality? The US government and the supporting media are claiming a whopping surge in the number of jobs produced in the US labor market. But the reality is something different. It's pretty evident that there is a disconnect between reality and political delivery. The core of this disconnect is rooted in the job growth statistics published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, what is the basis for the reports released by the BLS? Are they manipulated or are they mirroring the real picture? The latest report from BLS claims that 1.2 million foreign-born workers were added to the economy in February. It's highly unlikely as all the major and minor companies are still struggling to find their base. The finance companies like UBS were affected the most. They were carrying out multiple layoffs due to the financial crisis. Many of the workers quit their jobs as the companies refused to pay fair wages to the workers. The largest number of layoffs that happened in February 2024 is said to be the largest since the Great Recession. There were 84,638 layoffs in February, which clearly indicates the unemployment crisis. The Statistics Bureau wants the people to believe that there was a surge in the number of workers. It's high time for the Bureau of Labor Statistics to provide more transparency and accurate data rather than trying to paint a rosy picture of the government and their policies. They should play fair with the people of this country. When the people's hopes are shattered in front of them, the government is still convincing them that everything is perfect. How is the government gaslighting the people of the US? The main agenda of the US government is to fulfill its political agenda and show its power in both internal and external matters. They're doing it by classifying how they describe people who are not working. The core of it lies in the unemployment reports coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. How is unemployment measured in the US? In the United States, the government uses surveys, census counts, and the number of unemployment insurance claims to track the number of unemployed. The US Census conducts a monthly survey called the Current Population Survey, or CPS, under the order and guidance of the BLS. This becomes the base for the primary estimate of the nation's unemployment rate. This survey has been done every month since 1940 in the US. However, the problem lies in how the government describes unemployment. People are said to be either unemployed or not in the labor force, and those included in the not in the labor force category are not considered for the calculation of the unemployment rate. It is the root cause of the significant difference between the reports and reality. To make it clear, in February 2024, the number of people officially considered unemployed was 6 million. It seems to be a pretty reasonable figure, but when it comes to the number of people out of labor, it's 100 million. The sum will be around 106 million. The number of people seeking jobs in the US is around 106 million. But according to reports from the BLS, it's 6 million. During the Great Recession, the world struggled to find a pace. International organizations and banks found it hard to keep up with the ongoing financial crash. The US was once one of the countries that struggled too much to find shelter from the crisis. It isn't only about options in the US. When a thread tugs in one corner of the globe, the repercussions will be felt across the continents. When the US wounds, the whole world itself will bleed. The unemployment crisis in the US has had an impact on its allies and other countries. It's a global crisis. It's about the future of the US. It's high time that the government respected the needs of the people and acted accordingly. Each step taken by the country will be counted. Do you think the Native Americans should be saved from being marginalized? Do comment your thoughts. And that's all for today. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more. Until we meet again.